This is me just over a year ago at my heaviest weight, 435 pounds. I was depressed, I had high blood pressure, I had no energy, and most of all, I was resigned to the idea that I would just be morbidly obese for the rest of my life. But today, 1 year later, I've lost 200 pounds, and my life is completely different. In this video, I'm going to share my full transformation story, the before, during, and after of my 200-pound weight loss journey. I'm Joel, and you're watching Joel Gets Swole. Really quick, if you find this video helpful or inspiring and you'd like to continue following my journey, it would mean a lot if you could subscribe to the channel. Now, to set a bit of context, I've either been overweight or obese pretty much my entire life. Even as a kid, I was heavier than other kids, and after high school, I definitely put on a lot of weight. Then I spent years yo-yo dieting. I'm sure this sounds familiar to some of you. I tried what felt like every diet. Keto, Weight Watchers, Atkins, Paleo, Mediterranean, Optavia, Noom, and most of them would work, for a while at least. I would lose 20, 30, even 40 pounds, but inevitably I'd fall off the diet and I'd go back to my old habits and I'd put on all the weight that I lost. Usually I ended up gaining more than I lost. Then in 2019, I got really serious. My wife and I had just had our second child, and I was gifted a CrossFit membership and a nutrition coach. And so over the course of about a year, I lost 120 pounds just through diet and exercise. And I felt like I'd finally changed my life. But then in 2020, the pandemic hit, and I stopped working out. I turned to food to cope with all the stress and anxiety, and I ended up putting on all the weight that I'd lost, plus I gained an extra 50 pounds from my heaviest. That's when I hit my all-time heaviest weight of 435 pounds. That was the point where I felt like all I could do was give up and resign myself to being obese for the rest of my life. And that's what I did for a couple of years. But eventually I opened myself up to the idea that I should try again. But I didn't want to go through another cycle of losing and regaining. I wanted to do whatever it took to lose the weight and keep it off. So I started researching what would give me the best chance of losing weight and maintaining it for 10, 20, even 30 years. All of my research ended up pointing me to bariatric surgery. Now, I'd always thought of bariatric surgery as something people did when they were much older. But I was in my mid-30s and I realized I'd already spent nearly 2 decades of my adult life missing out on things because of my weight. And I was worried if I waited any longer, I was going to miss my kids' entire childhood, not being able to play with them or go on adventures and just be the active dad and husband that I really wanted to be. So I ended up going to a bariatric center in my area, and after a consultation, I decided to have a procedure called the SADI-S. Now, I've made a whole other video explaining exactly what that surgery is and why I chose it. And if you'd like to watch that, feel free to check that out after you finish this video. Basically, it's kind of a hybrid surgery between a gastric bypass and a gastric sleeve. I have both a sleeve and a bypass element to my surgery. Once I decided to have the procedure, getting to the surgery was a long process in itself. That's one thing I appreciated about my bariatric center. They aren't offering a quick fix. They're focused on giving me the tools that were going to help me change my life. And I had to take multiple nutrition classes. I had a psych evaluation, an endoscopy, and several other pre-op meetings before I was even approved for surgery. A helpful analogy I heard going into this was a hardware versus a software upgrade. For years, I was trying software upgrades like new diets, new exercise plans, habits, and mindsets. But my hardware, my metabolism, my hunger hormones, my body itself was working against me. Bariatric surgery, specifically a metabolic surgery like the SADI-S, is also a hardware upgrade. It physically changes my body to influence hunger, satiety, and in my case, it also causes malabsorption, which means I don't absorb all the nutrients that I eat. But a hardware upgrade in itself isn't enough if you don't also update the software. I still had to do the hard work of changing my habits, patterns, and behaviors after surgery. So my procedure happened on October 30th, 2024. And that started with a 2-week pre-op liquid diet, which was also incredibly tough. Then came the surgery itself, and honestly, the procedure was the easy part. You just go to sleep and wake up, and the surgery's done. The recovery was the hard part. The gas pain from the surgery was by far the worst and most painful part for me. After that, there was a huge mental and physical transition. I was on a liquid diet for another 2 weeks post-op and then slowly progressed through the diet stages of pureed foods and then just soft foods. I had to completely relearn my relationship with food and my body's signals, and it felt like just kind of a hard reset. Another really big change was getting used to the vitamins that I had to take. Because of the malabsorption from my surgery, I have to take over a dozen vitamins every day for the rest of my life. They have to be timed specifically, some can't be taken together, so it took a while to get used to, but I ended up setting reminders on my phone and using a weekly pill organizer, and I've definitely gotten used to it, and now it's just part of my routine. Now, the weight loss, especially at first, came incredibly fast. I lost my first 100 pounds in under 4 months. I was mainly focusing on protein, listening to my body, and learning when I was full, and just letting the surgery really do its work. I definitely had more energy, so I was able to move more, even though I didn't do a lot of intentional exercise. I've mainly focused on my nutrition and being just generally more active. There's also a lot of gastrointestinal changes that I had to get used to, learning what foods I could handle well and not well. I found that there were also foods that I just no longer wanted anymore, specifically bread. I would also go through periods of just plateau in my weight loss. I would have a big drop on the scale, and then it would be maybe weeks to maybe even a month of the scale not really moving much, and then there'd be another big drop. And that just kept happening. The plateaus would get a little longer, and the weight loss drops would be a little smaller. Now, as I've gotten closer to my 1-year anniversary, the weight loss definitely slowed down, and I realized that the surgery had gotten me this far, but to get all the way to the finish line and to maintain it, I knew I needed to step up my software game. So just over a month ago, I realized that I was 16 pounds away from losing 200 pounds total. And so for that final month, I got very serious. I started tracking my food, aiming for about 2,000 calories a day. I set a step goal of around 10,000 steps a day, and I started doing resistance training 4 times a week. And I'm very happy to report that as of today, I hit my goal. I'm 200 pounds down from my heaviest weight, and I'm filming this on the 1-year anniversary of my surgery. Now, as cool as it is to be able to say that I've lost 200 pounds, the real benefits of my health journey don't come from the scale. I feel like I have a whole new life. It's just the little things. I have so much more energy. I can play with my kids after work instead of just collapsing on the couch. I can put my shoes on and socks without a struggle. I can go to a restaurant and not worry that I'm going to have to squeeze into a booth. I can shop for clothes in a normal store. I've gone from a 5X down to an XL. I also don't have high blood pressure anymore, and all my health metrics and labs have looked really, really good. Now, I've gone through a huge change, but I know it's not a magic fix. I know that surgery is a powerful tool, but it won't do the work for me forever. I still have to make the right choices every day and set up the habits, patterns, and behaviors to set myself up for long-term success. One thing that was important to me on my post-op journey is being able to talk to people who are further along on their journey than I am. And I really wanted to hear from people across the spectrum, not just people who've had bariatric surgery, but people who've lost weight in any way and been able to maintain it. What did they do right? What were the keys to their success? And so that's why I actually started a new podcast. It's called Keeping It Off, and it's all about long-term weight loss success. It's about finding people who have not only lost weight, but they've been able to maintain their weight loss for years at a time. And I really wanted to learn from them and highlight their stories because I feel like they're an underrepresented part of the weight loss community. If that interests you, you can watch it right here on the YouTube channel, or you can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. So what's next for me now? Well, my journey definitely isn't over. I still like to lose maybe 15 or 20 pounds and just kind of see how my body feels at this new weight. I definitely would say my primary focus is shifting from weight loss to fitness and strength training. I want to build muscle and see how strong and fit that I can get. I recently set up my home gym, and that's going to be a big part of the next chapter of my journey, and I'll definitely be documenting it here on the channel. It's also possible at some point in the future I'll end up looking into skin removal surgery and plastic surgery because I definitely do have some loose skin and I may want to deal with that at some point, but It's not too much of a problem at this moment. It's not preventing me from doing anything that I want to be able to do. At this point, I'm not super focused on it. I do want to say that if you're watching this and you're where I was a year ago, feeling hopeless after regaining weight, I want to tell you that there is hope. You don't have to feel alone. You can change, and there are amazing tools out there that can help you. Definitely, I encourage you to talk to a doctor, a bariatric surgeon, or just someone who will listen and give you some guidance and help. If you have any questions about my journey, whether it's something I did or I didn't cover in this video, please ask away in the comments. I do my best to respond to every question. If there are enough questions, I may even do kind of a Q&A style follow-up video. I'd also love to hear about your journey and your experience in the comments, so please feel free to leave that. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.